Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. For today's episode, I have an intersection of very unique thoughts. And I would say today is the first day that it occurred to me, at least in a unique way, it occurred to me that I have never wondered about what is beyond freedom. And it is such a bizarre, I shouldn't say bizarre, but it is such a mysterious question, that what is beyond freedom? And what would a freedom from freedom look like? Before I begin, I would say that for the name of this episode, even though it's titled A Freedom from Freedom, it has another name, which I would say Freedom Beyond Freedom. That's what I wrote at first. And in the subtitle I've written is Freedom and Escape from Purpose. First thing I'll say to start this off is that this is a very strange topic to talk about. And deep down, I don't know what value my exploration into this idea, towards the edge of this idea, what value it will have. But anyways, I'm gonna attempt it. In life, every person has limits. When we look at the human biology, it is very conditional. That means if the conditions are wrong, it stops existing. In a changing world, if we were to consider what is freedom, that means it's like when you try to understand, or when you try to look at something, or let's say a person attempts to brainstorm. It's as if we're wondering about how the concept, or what the concept means now, let's say from a specific angle, and then generally what the concept means. So in some sense, we're wondering about the concept and context of reality. When I wonder about the context of reality, I mean, my first impulse towards freedom is that it's like, to me, it feels it's mandatory. It's something that everybody would love to have, or would love to have more of. But from the image of a temporary creature, just from this view that we are temporary biological creatures, and we do have this additional dimension of mind, which you can say is how outer reality echoes behind our eyes. I would say, based on the levels to this entity that we are, the concept of freedom has different implications. If you think about a temporary creature and what freedom it seeks, if the creature identifies as purely an existential entity, to remain in existence is freedom. It's freedom from non-existence. But if the person identifies as a mind, let's say not as a body, that means rather than identifying as a temporary body, you identify as, rather than identifying as a temporary known body, one can identify as an eternal unknown mind. And when you consider the scale of the freedom and the limitlessness of this eternal unknown possibility of mind, it's as if freedom becomes not for an eternal dynamism to be shackled to a snapshot of a static moment. You see, what's happening really is that the world is designed so that no one can ever understand what's happening. Let me tell you why I'm saying this. And perhaps there's other ways I could word it, but the reason I'm saying this is that because there is change, what we hold on to leaves us. You see, in reality, let's say the human psychology, if you were to let's say you're someone who wants to create some sort of robot that is similar to the human being, and part of the programming of this robot would be for it to associate and disassociate. And this is pretty much the notion of attachment and detachment. If the person identifies freedom as attachment, then detachment becomes their opponent. If the person considers detachment to be the source of freedom, then attachment becomes the issue. When you look at the psychology of human beings from ancient mystical times, it's as if for them, I can't tell you how shocking this was for me, really. Imagine being a human being born in 1991, and then you go look in the history books and you look at ancient teachings and ancient ideas and ancient behaviors, and you suddenly realize that it was as if the ancients treated reality like a dream. There is a word in Vedic thought which is one of the most profound words. It's called samsara. And if your name is Sam or Sarah, you should definitely check this out. Because in samsara, there is this notion that there is maya, action, and then there is the result of action, where we consider that as karma. And it's as if the whole force that is moving the world was an illusion to the ancient yogis. There have been people who, it's as if some people look at, these meditators that go into caves for years, and they're like, man, what a strange person, what is that guy doing? It's like, doesn't that guy realize we have all this evolutionary capability of using technology and experiencing a different world? And then you see the strangeness of that, isolated yogic figure was that in some sense they had enough of a world where it still had unknown variables. You see, what it is that we are conditioned because of the body to want to associate and understand everything through a human filter. But when you realize in this world there are ways the moment can exist that surpasses human ability, then you become shocked at how many different types of intelligence there is in the room. So what I'm trying to say is that you can have any notion of a conditional freedom. You could think freedom is like sitting on a chair, but then when you begin let's say you've sat on that chair for years and you suddenly notice that there are those moving around you. It's as if the world has a life. And you know what it is? It's like the world has a hidden life. I was telling my twin brother the other day that what I find to be the structure of all knowledge is that all concepts are going towards humanization, and when they do, they have value. That means if the person says there was a god for planets, or let's say there was a god of the sky, right? Or a god of space. There was a god for space. So imagine there was imagine you went into a space, imagine outer space as a mind. And I don't know how to say it. I'm trying to say, imagine the god of the inconceivable, not the god of the conceivable. The religions are gods of the conceivable. And to be more accurate with that statement, what I mean is that God is something a shape is doing to itself. Imagine a square became conscious, And then this square was like, okay, the universe is a square, God is a square, everything is a square. Do you know? So that's pretty much what I mean by a conceivable creation. Acknowledging an inconceivable creator is still a conceivable creation. You know what it is? It's another, what I'm saying, pretty much if you're religious and hearing me, is that I am saying if God is inconceivable, the greatest connection to this idea is through being inconceivable. And to be inconceivable is effortless, which is another way of saying, now everybody understands why Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching. Why the concept of nirvana existed in the Buddhic mind. Why human beings have looked at reality and noticed that in a changing world, what stability can act as truth? What ideological structure can freeze truth in a changing world? You see, there is a freedom that is conceivable, conditional, which for the conditional freedom means balance, to be honest. For the animate, for the incarnate, for the manifest, physically manifest, balance is pretty much the greatest epitome of conscious ideological divinity. That means all philosophers will realize, it's about having balance, but that balance means an equanimity. It means a serenity of, so many people try to detach themselves in like the novice meditator mind, not realizing that your worldview is suggesting how you are attaching to things. I am telling you, the human being is like this next level advanced technology that is in actuality unknown, and we have sang songs around it, hiding that there are inconceivable intelligent roots to whatever view of consciousness we have right now as I'm speaking in 2022. In my youth, life was a playground. But I can say that as much as the inner paradises are alluring, to me it is the outer world, which is the epitome of divinity. Look at the direction of intelligence. Let's say any person who has considered the notion of divine will or God moving, or in some sense some universal intelligence moving. Do you see? It's like what that is it is a movement from the inner to the outer. All the inventions on this planet, all the poetry, all the actions and manifestations, these are in some sense from within to without. And what I mean by this is that it's as if where the human being is happening is a bridge between two dimensions. It's as if two dimensions are two dimensions, like giants are dancing, and suddenly people are trying to live in a civilization underneath their feet. And that's an archetypal, reference to chaos and order being what is pulling us and dragging us around. It's like when there was this concept in let's say paranormal ideology, and this is something I don't care to speak often about, but I'll just make a point of it here. The in-between of life and death. What is life and death to the body? For the mind is the known and the unknown. And to the soul is the projector, is the creator. When it comes to our inner psychological grasp of reality, we have to realize we are in God's position. That means it's strange that in front of your eyes, you are a creation. Behind your eyes, you are a creator. And when you realize that the creator is not object-subject oriented, an unknown fascination enters your life. I am telling you, whoever's listening, right? That means forget all these ideas of spirituality and whatever. Every human being has entered a world for the first time. What do I mean by this? That means even if there is, let's say, some sort of transcendental, amnesia of the immortal going on, regardless of that, it's as if we are here to realize that we have been in every moment of our life visited by novelty. That where free will comes from is a space. Did you know that? I don't know if many people are saying this on this planet, but your mind is not an object, it is space, and what is consciousness? We have limited it to just a major association with the body. This is honestly why I get angry when scientists talk about multiple dimensions. Or I should say atheists talk about multiple dimensions. It's as if there are multiple dimensions, if the scientific community has considered, 10 to 11 dimensions or vibrating strings at the source essence of reality, do you know? It's as if they have fathomed so many dimensions in the scientific mind, because mathematics is the birth of the multidimensional. But the issue, what I'm kind of emotionally communicating right now, is that apply the multidimensionalism to physical matter, to the dimension of reality we're in. For a second, whoever you are, just, it's like you can be in any sort of inner psychological spiritual theater. I really don't care, because I know that a lot of the attention of the human being in the inner realms is living as a free attention. So it's as if in front of your eyes you might not be free. You might be on a rock in the middle of nowhere, but when it comes to how you are aware of your inner realm, and it took us 4.5 billion years to reach this subtler dimension. You know what it is? It's like the mind and communication and language is like this heroic spirit holding on to the edge of a cliff. And if we ignore, how would I say it? I'm going too far here. I'll take some steps back. I'll say that multidimensionality means that the unknown has a seat on the table. A seat at the table. If the unknown is present, all strictness of belief of subjectivity, it loosens. In the pursuit of trying to conceive what a freedom beyond freedom looks like, a distinction between conditional and unconditional freedom is made. And there comes this recognition that unconditional freedom means non-existence. This is the bizarre thing that I think many people who entertain the notion of the spirit don't understand. That it's a portal to being rather than an endless reincarnation of senses of doing. just the mere statement the mind is not an object should just be storming the academic departments of reality. You know, there are days where I poetically say there are some days where I pay attention more to my shadow, and then I pay attention some days where I pay more attention to how the shadows occur. That means it's like a person wondering what their shadow self is looking at, and you see it is unconditionally bound in existing because there is a light force. So the levels that we put to life fragment our senses of freedom, turn freedom multidimensional. Freedom for the body may be just maintenance of health. It could be that the concept of immortality is the destiny of a biological creature that doesn't want to close the eyes of its species. The body seeks continuity. That is pretty much, I would say, the freedom for the body, for the biological existence. That means imagine people did not live 100 years. Imagine people lived 1,000 years. And the first 200 years of that 1,000-year lifespan, they were just very still observing reality. You see, what it is that we are living in our minds. We're living as minds experiencing bodies, rather than bodies that rather than trying to fathom just an elemental realm. Rather, it's as if chemistry is hallucinating physics, and physics is hallucinating psychology. Okay, guys, I need a quick intermission. It's freezing. You know, I always say living in Canada is like, and having a balcony is like, you know, an experience from inside the fridge if the door of the fridge was open. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. To continue. Because what other choice do I have? Pretty much, guys, I'll continue from this point. That there are levels to freedom. Freedom for the body pretty much is continuity. Culturally translates as immortality. Freedom for the mind is balance, and I would say is acceptance and contentment. That means any human being who becomes content, they just look at their intelligence and they're like, oh, okay, thoughts are like, birds flying over your head. You notice them, but they are not you. So that brings a sort of freedom for the mind. So it's pretty much the mind is like the pilot, Or here, I'll say a better metaphor. In Vedanta, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is this very profound metaphor for the dimensions of a human being. That is pretty much this metaphor of the chariot. So the horses of the chariot are like your body. The chariot driver is the mind. And the soul, the dimension of the soul or the Atman, is what is inside that chariot. So freedom for the chariot driver is to realize that it's a creator, it's a pilot, and to do its task, to abide. You can say that when monotheistic religions that preach submission of ego, it's as if the chariot driver trusts like the directions given from what's inside the chariot. Pretty much I'm saying just it's like the horses are the body, the chariot driver is the mind. The body is a sort of static reaction to stopping, I would say. Let me say it this way. The dimension of the body seeks continuity. The dimension of the mind, I said seeks balance, but that balance, ultimately, the reason for that balance is for to endlessly expand efficiently. So I would say the mind is the mind is an opportunity that must be applied. It's like the mind exists so that there is a possibility to even react to the body. Freedom for the horses is to keep going. Freedom for the chariot driver is to just have the free will to control. And then for the soul, the freedom for the soul is to arrive at its destination. I'm really, taking this metaphor maybe too intensely. That's an interesting idea, no freedom from the soul. It's as if the world is filled with free souls and those free of the soul, which is another way of saying that from one dimension's temporary journey, a creature awakened to the nature of all reality being simultaneous, to the degree that the microcosm and macrocosm were never inseparable. To experience what I at least believe as one person, take this as one person's opinion, but how I see the concept of samadhi in yoga is that the person realizes being has been being, and whatever is done transitions through a cycle of being created, the archetype of Brahman, being maintained, the archetype of Vishnu, and being destroyed, the archetype of Shiva. And think of it this way. So many people, they say they are free. But if you think about it, or let me say it this way, most people seek freedom, and as long as you seek it, you're not free. As long as you expect the inner realms to dictate the outer realms, it's as if there's something to this world that minds cannot get too loud. That means if a person does something that is on some intuitive, inherent inner level off to them, and they keep doing it, there is a consequence that arises from nature. It's as if we are being managed through energy managing itself. To me, sometimes what appears as a physical world feels like an unknown field. It's like how some sages say you're not a wave in an ocean, you're the ocean. From the beginning you have been the ocean. It's as if from the beginning of the first memory of conscious life, you were a witness, a viewer of the whole moment. You are not just the specific content in the moment. That means right now, if let's say an extraterrestrial arrived on the planet and I was just walking in the park and the extraterrestrial's like, what are you? Hypothetical situation, And if the extraterrestrial asked, I'd be like, I am a space of awareness where everything in my awareness is being me to the inner realms, but in the outer realms, my free will's mobility is limited to my biological body. And it's pretty unknown. That's the whole point. To me, the word unknown replaced my spirituality. That means the moment you think, oh, you're a known body, it's like, wait a minute, what about an unknown body? And then suddenly the concept of chakras was made, was found. It's such a strange world that it's so intense and overwhelming that all we can do is like, okay, whatever. The human mind is actually, I think we are, maybe in the galaxy, the funniest creatures that ever existed. I feel that if there were advanced extraterrestrial civilizations, they're looking at us and they're like, okay, this is pure comedy world. The species, it's like a bunch of creatures from the planet awakened to the planet and then divided the planet to fight over the planet, just to realize at the end they're all creatures on one planet, to To me, the beginning of world peace is so easy. Just get all the world leaders to acknowledge the cosmos, and suddenly we'll have incredible leaders being born. You see, the issue is that people are trying to culturally satisfy rather than universally satisfy. You see, if I take it to the level of culture, then there comes the weight of personalities on my mind. But when I treat myself as a universal being, everything that happens is instantly being a universal event. Right? Because really, in this life, we have a choice, and it's based on the energy levels of the body. If the person is tired, the reason they become agreeable is because they don't want to hold in their inner realms vision. Part of being a human being is actually discovering how your mind can communicate to the world in a way where the world remembers it as being a world. You see, it's we're in the era of advanced communication. What is truly expected of a species headed for the stars, headed for advanced civilizations? It's like a universalized value system. It's like the person's like, okay, I'm being an object right now. Okay, I have a name, a personality, memories. So, okay, I'm a subject right now too. And at the same time, I am an awareness to the awareness that I am being a subject and object simultaneously. Believe it or not, physicality is at least towards for a conceivable immortal, for an immortal that has conceivable reach. It's like one fourth or 1/3 of life. From one view, I could see it being 1/4 of life, but I would say, okay, 1/3 of life also works. There's the inner realm, the outer realm, and then awareness to both of them simultaneously being present in how the present is unknown. We were all born in the unknown. We're all children of the unknown. We don't realize it. To me, there was something, every action done on this planet, if you wonder about it through a time scale of so far in the future, it's like the meaning changes. It's as if something is meaningful now, then 100 years later it's meaningless, then 100 years after it's meaningful. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's as if like there is no single value to things. Imagine a capitalized letter Y, and imagine at each edge there is an attention looking towards the center. What's even interesting is that the human species hasn't even given itself a purpose to be capable of fathoming what else the world could be. You see, that's the issue. When we want safety, when we want, civilization 1.0 has a bib on, like that's how inefficient it is. It could be a shock, but I think it is the truth. That before our eyes saw the known, the unknown was being. Okay, there seems to be 7 viewers. I would be very interested to know how what I'm saying is coming across, if you want to share in the chat section. eventually, freedom from conditional physics, freedom from, let's say, unconditional metaphysics. It's as if we are left at our starting point. You know, this might be a very strange statement, but I think the smartest moment of human life is the first moment. The first conscious, like when the human being arrives on this earth, the child goes through the process of suddenly being able to, the doctor slaps the child on its back and it's like it suddenly starts breathing. You know, from that moment, from the moment the candle is lit in the conscious, let's say in this realm of earth, that first moment is one of the most purest moments. You see, in certain shamanic cultures, they had this idea that the youngest person should hang out with the oldest person in the family. And they would say, why are you doing this? You know, why is the grandmother taking care of the young child? You know? And so they would say, because the grandmother is about to enter the spirit world, and the child that has been born has just stepped out of the spirit world. To me, my mind is the commander of my body. My body is pretty much a servant of the free will. And my mind, there was a time where I thought my mind was king, but I would tell you I realized that my mind was a servant. That means the greatest, most divine act of the known is to serve the unknown. The unknown is the great liberator. It is the king of all thought. That word unknown. It is one of the most fascinating containments of reality. Beyond your mind. Most people think they're an ocean of memory, but there is a freedom of a familiarity with ways of looking at the moment that you cannot fathom now. You see, think of it this way, that if it is a multidimensional reality, the moment the body is dismissed, the attention of the mind still remains in its dimension, but is now experiencing reality bodiless. And really, if during reality you realize that it's an unknown experiencer, that means it took me a while to really comprehend the depth of this, but I am an unknown being. Because the knowledge used to define how I am a known being is in a changing world. You see, it's as if, who can you be in a changing world? It's like, if the change is slow enough, you know, then maybe history books can be written. But if the change was super fast, there would be no shape to desire shape. And if there is a desire of the shape, it is not the desire of this room of reality. There are other rooms. When I say there are other rooms, I mean that like the roots of the tree are experiencing the soil, and the branches of the tree and the leaves of the tree are experiencing the sky. They're both being the tree. They're both true. But in some sense, the points of reality, the points of perception are the distinction. You know, in my, I have in this life been, you know, if I was to identify with my most conscious memories, I would say I have been a very silly and in a sort of carefree, playful person. But when the unknown became a factor in my consideration of reality, that playfulness translated into this giant intensity. You see, there's they don't say this, but there is a value in living an honest life, a strange inner value. What I mean by this is that it's like the cultivation of one's nature. Let's say somebody is violent. You're cultivating that sort of nature. You are as if reprogramming the energy of the moment to readjust to the, the newest imprint, the newest view you have. But in a multidimensional reality, the space is being treated as intelligent, not just human beings in unintelligent space. And if the space is intelligent, everything within the space deserves the greatest capability of the greatest view of the space. In regards to physical reality, we're all like on one island, called Earth, and when it comes to our minds, every person is on their own island, their own mini island. That means there in front of our eyes there is one Earth, but if you consider the Earths behind our eyes, it goes beyond counting. How many different days, how many different human beings experienced change? Times of suffering, it's like that sort of self arose. Times of joy, that sort of self arose. And really the freedom of the soul, this is I would say, how far I have reached towards the notion of an ultimate freedom, is to realize that the most advanced intelligence is simple. That means think of the most advanced, most complex intelligence, and then increase its speed to the speed of light. It's as if instantaneous, fastest speed ever fathomable, like 2 dimensions of speed, like a coin. After dabbling in the geometry of ideology, I have realized a Taoistic truth. The pilot is also a passenger. The passenger is also a pilot. The body is a passenger of the mind. If the mind pilots into chaos, the body experiences chaos. If the mind, if the governing primary attention of the human being pilots towards freedom, it's freedom. Think of like you're not seeking, if freedom had levels, you're not seeking the first level of freedom. You're seeking the ultimate. It's like it's as if the human intelligence takes the idea of freedom and runs at the fastest speed it can into its contemplation. The conclusion of all actions and things done is being. The higher dimensions are just being. Once the known and the unknown is accepted, one has completely flew beyond, piloted beyond the linguistic simulation. The mind becomes free of conception. When the mind becomes free of conception, it becomes nothing to itself, and so the mind and the body appear as if they are watching something, and that what they are watching is you, Supreme. You see, freedom in various narratives, and my laptop might die. Oh my god, 9%, okay. Some narratives of freedom, they think that it is just bringing a supreme order to the whole world. Some narratives of freedom is that to let it be chaotic, right? But if we were to realize that chaos and order are aspects of reality, they are filters for reality, and that when it comes to pure intelligence, space has nowhere to go. Space has forever been. Now add intelligence to that. Intelligent space has forever been intelligence. So it's as if an acknowledgement of the ocean, an acknowledgement of the wave, and an acknowledgement of the ego, like the fish that swim through it. Anyways, guys, my laptop's gonna end. There may be a part 2 to this, or I might just talk about freedom again. I don't normally say this, but I felt recently it would be a good idea to treat the comment section of like this whole Mr.Within thing I'm doing as a sort of research project where listeners are honestly writing, like, you know, sharing their views, you know. And when I say honestly, I mean in the sense not of an emotional desire, but more like an accuracy of how your worldview is held in comparison to just the moment. It's as if for those who are free, they don't have the concept of freedom. It's as if human beings are not trying to be human beings, right? They're trying to be something more, right? Because we feel we are human beings. So it's as if you were free, you would not be looking at the concept of freedom anymore. You would be looking at whatever's beyond it. And is freedom an escapism from purpose if the freedom accepts the conditional? Excuse me, if the I'll say that again. It's as if we wonder about freedom and we wonder about the notion of purpose. And freedom of purpose means to have the freedom of any purpose, to be able to do anything. And if the notion of freedom goes beyond a humanized, conditional, conceivable point, then in some sense it's as if if purpose was a game, there is no more a player. So an inconceivable freedom doesn't really serve the outer realms that is just maintained through the linguistic simulation and just elemental reality. Anyways, what I have fathomed, and it's pretty much my life's work, what I term civilization 2.0, it's like the freedom for an advanced civilization is a freedom to see what the most advanced would look like. True freedom is the efficient, complete activation of potential possible. It's as if in an advanced civilization there would be no elitist or, proletariat, bourgeoisie sort of kind of dynamic anymore. The hierarchies have become equal in a horizontal dimension, but in a vertical dimension they exist. That horizontal dimension is the acknowledgement of an advanced civilization, that in an advanced civilization consists of advanced human beings. And so in this lifetime, if you wonder about the greatest advancement, which is equivalent to the greatest freedom, you will be fascinated what version of you is waiting to happen. It's as if we have not come here to just meet others or hear others. We have come here to meet ourselves for the first time, and now think of the self of selves. Or as the poet Attar, this Persian poet from, 800, 900 years ago, he says the soul of the soul of the soul. And he's just going on as if soul to the power of infinity, It's like that would be a mathematical equation for God, poetically, Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Much blessings. Namaste. And regardless if you're a Titan, decency is the way. Much blessings and namaste.